I realize that it's kind of a strange title and a strange thumbnail for a retirement video, but I got to thinking about it, and this subject is something that is real important in my life, and that is I recognize that we go through stages. We're born, we're educated, we work, we retire, we die. I recognized very early on that I didn't know much about my grandparents. I knew my grandmother pretty well, both of my grandmothers, but my grandfathers, no. One of them I never met. The other one I only had probably 5-10 encounters with in my lifetime. The one, my mother's father, died very young. But what came for me to understand was they left nothing behind. I knew more about George Washington and Abraham Lincoln than I knew about either of my grandfathers, and that didn't set well with me. Particularly then when you get to a great-grandfather, you know nothing. Then, shortly after I retired, actually, it plagued me. I retired in 2005, and I realized that I had succeeded for the same reasons, for the drive that I had, and then I failed for the same reasons, a self-destructive capacity within me. And I said I needed to figure that out. So I read a book that said I needed to sit down and with a yellow pad and make a list of all the days in my life that I could remember. And of course, many of them were very current, but it asked me to strive to remember the early on memories in my life. And as it instructed me, I would probably come up with somewhere between 75 and 100 days that I could literally remember in my life. And they were right. And it said, then put that yellow pad aside and come back 2 weeks later and do it again. But don't look at the first entries. And then it said, take the 2 entries and make a list of those days that had the most influence on determining who you are and why you are the way you are. And what I came to realize was there were roughly 10 days before I turned 14 years of age that formed my character, that basically established who Cary Grinkmeyer was going to be for the rest of his life and how he would interact with other people for the rest of his life, and what would be important and what wouldn't be important, and pretty much set my destiny. I then decided, with those days in mind, I needed to understand more about what formed my character. And the number one and number 2 days revolved around the death of my mother when I was 8 years old. So I went back, I lived here in Birmingham, and I went back to Cincinnati, and I went and interviewed my aunts and uncles and my father, and basically tried to come to an understanding of what happened to me in those 14 years and why it happened to me and how it influenced the rest of my life and my ambitions, my goals, and the drive that I did or didn't have. And so I then said, okay, knowing that and knowing who Cary was, why don't you share it? Why don't you put it in written form so that your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, if they so wanted to know who you were and why you were who you were, that it would be available. And I became aware of the Kindle program, the Amazon self-publishing, and I wrote and published this book. It's copyrighted 2010, so it's been around for 11 years now. Sold some of them, not many, because I gave mostly to my grandchildren and my My son basically refused to read it. My daughter, before she passed away, did read it. And most recently, and my granddaughters haven't read it, but my grandson has. I gave him a copy of it, and he immediately read it. And he's now 16 years old. But really, my objective was to leave something behind, and so that my heirs, if they were so inclined, would know who I was and why I was who I was. And I want to impress that upon you. I also engage in photography, in painting, and then I do these videos. I realized not long ago that I will never die because of the things that I've left behind, particularly these videos. I don't know what YouTube will look like 15, 20 years from now, but these videos won't go away, and they will be my legacy, and they will be here to explain who I am. The other thing I kind of realized is that I still am in a Facebook group with my high school classmates and even my junior high school classmates. The junior high I went in Champaign, Illinois, and high school in Indianapolis, Indiana. So I suspect there are some people who I don't remember that are catching up with who Carrie is and what is Carrie all about. And I think that's important to me. And I'm doing this video because I think it should be important to you, particularly when it comes to the people who are going to follow you. And then I also think it's important that you create the mindset that I want to leave the world a better place than I found it. And hopefully that people can learn from my experiences and be better as a result of it. I think I've been successful. I think I know why I've been successful, because of this exercise. This video is not to sell this book, but if you strive to leave something behind, I'd encourage you. It's in the description. In fact, I've written a number of books. I've put them there. This is the first one. This was Tall Grass. And then I wrote The Christmas Web. The Christmas Web is more of a children's book and toy almost about our Christmas family tradition, and it gives you the ability to mimic our Christmas family tradition. Then when I got in real estate, I wrote this one, Supercharge Your Real Estate Sales Using Cutting-Edge Social Media Strategies. Probably the title is not quite right. Maybe need to do something about that. And then I wrote Who Are You and Why Are You You? It's kind of a motivational book that is an extension of what I learned in Tall Grass, and how then once I did write Tall Grass and come to understand who I was, how I used that to gain a better understanding of myself and to figure out what made Carrie tick, and how I have then used that to propel and build this career, which is, I think, the most gratifying career that I've had, even more so than as a financial advisor. Because truly, as a financial advisor, I shared my financial knowledge with a limited group of people. In this career, as a YouTuber, as a writer, I'm sharing my knowledge and my experience with a much greater scope of people, and that's made possible as a result of the internet and as a result of YouTube. And again, if you watch my videos, I believe this is the best half of my life, and I encourage you to adopt that same kind of attitude, that this is the best half of your life and you should enjoy it. One of the things I'm going to enjoy, if you'll see those medals and those shoes there, next year, I think it's in May, I'll participate in the Senior Olympics. We just finished the Olympics, and there will be over 10,000 of us seniors show up in Orlando, Florida, to compete. I actually compete in the sprints, the 50, the 100, and the 200-meter dash, and if I feel good, I can try to do the 400-meter dash, and I'm one of the fastest 75 to 80-year-olds. And that's part, again, of what I'm leaving behind. And I hope that my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren can all learn from my experience. That's what my life has become about. That's what I encourage you as you move through your retirement. Because again, as the thumbnail said, we start at birth. We spend the first 20 years of our life being educated. We spend the next 40 years of our life working and accumulating. And then we stop and we retire. And we don't share. I have some friends who are very highly educated, doctors, lawyers, psychiatrists, and they retire, and that's the end of it. They have a tremendous amount of knowledge that they could share. And so whatever you have, share it. And if you're lucky, if you're so inclined, like it has happened to me, it becomes monetized, and it creates more excitement and more opportunities that you just won't imagine that will come forward and brighten your life. So start with that yellow pad. Write down all the days you can remember in your life. Come back to it a week later and do it. And then focus in on the days that made you, you. And then go to Amazon, Kindle Publishing it's called, and publish a book. I just had a gentleman who's from my investment tribe who asked me, Kerry, I've written a lot of several papers and I'd like to publish them, and how do I get it done? And I sent him some information and how to get it done. But it's through Amazon Kindle, self-publishing. It'll cost him, since it's already written and it doesn't need a lot of editing, probably about $500, $600, maybe $700 to publish a book, and you can leave something behind. What an idea. Okay, be talking to you again.